What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. So in hopes of trying to answer the numerous questions I have received about how we saddle up our horses, what type of things and tack we use, and how we keep them looking so good, and all of these things, I figured I would try to answer all these questions here by getting my next horse ready that we're going to use to film a new series for the Comfort Zone horse training video series. So we're going to go get ice, and along the way I will show you and talk about all of the little things that we do here to get our horses tacked up and how we take care of them. Okay, so next is going to be one of the most important part of saddling up our horse is going to be how I wrap my horse's legs. So a lot of people ask me, hey, what is it that you have under your wraps in the front? Because I have sometimes one quilt, sometimes two quilts underneath the wrap. Sometimes I use my V22 Extended Knee boots, so I will show you those as well. But ultimately what is very important are two things. One is I want to have as much suspensory support as I can on my horse's legs. Okay, so this is where wrapping comes into play, and this is where the V22 protecting boots are pretty much the only boots on the market that I feel that I really get suspensory support whenever applying this boot, especially when applied correctly, because the material is slightly flexible, so it feels like you're really putting the polo wrap around the leg, you know, versus just a piece of static neoprene that's just going to encourage horses to sweat and get really hot and also not offer true suspensory support. So let's start with the wraps. So those are the quilts that I'll use underneath the polo wraps. So this one we used this morning is a little bit dirty. I'll use it again because it's not too dirty and it's not wet. So that's why it's a little bit dirty. But anyways, I've got three here to show you that this is a new one. Okay, so the newer one are going to be a little harder to apply perfectly, but they'll have much more cushion to them, so they'll protect a lot more for impact. So this is sort of a trade-off versus applying a polo wrap without any quilt underneath, because this is going to, a polo wrap without the quilt underneath is going to offer a lot more suspensory support, and I'll show you how I wrap my horse's leg to really encourage that and increase that suspensory support. So this is going to be a trade-off, because you're not going to have much suspensory support if you use a quilt underneath it, but you're going to have a lot more protection from impact. And in the front legs sometimes, especially if I'm going to be doing a lot of rollback or side passing or spinning, anything that my horse is a little bit more prone of banging his legs together, this is where I'm going to be wanting to put those quilts. Now, the V22 protecting boots, the reason that I love them so much is because they have this knee extension here. So this is really, really great, sort of a middle ground between wearing a quilt underneath the polo wrap or using just a regular splint boot, which again protects the lower leg area but doesn't protect the knee area, which I think is a little bit more important to protect. Again, the reason I have three is because this one is a very new one. This one is still very good, but it's starting to have some wear to it, but it's still very flat. The cushion inside is still very good and in good shape. So these are going to be easier to apply, protect very well, and I kind of liked that period of their lifespan. And this one is an example of one that needs to be either retired to wrap around a cinch area if a horse has some fungus or something like that, or to throw away in the trash, because you can see that the cushion inside has gotten moved around from the washing and drying, and so this is going to probably cause some unwanted pressure point. It's going to be hard to apply properly, and so when it gets to that point, it's time to toss it in the trash or recycle it for some other purpose. So we're going to use these two on him, and but I'm going to show you how I wrap using these and how I wrap my horses without any quilt. So with the quilt, somebody asked me, are you not afraid sometimes with the quilt causing any pressure point on the horse's leg? And the question and the answer to that is yes. Not so much, because they are pretty soft, so I'm not too concerned about it, but it's going to be important for me to make sure that the seam here is going to be in the hollow area behind the cannon bone, just a bit between the suspensory and the cannon bone, okay, on the inside. So I'm going to roll this up here. And so when I'm going to, so I always wrap towards the back of the horse, always wrap towards the back of the horse. So I'm going to put this right here, right behind the cannon bone, okay, and I'm going to want to have it right here, right above the fetlock, right under the ankle, right here. Okay, so that's kind of where I'd like to have it, and this is why we buy the 14-inch quilts, because then they'll end up protecting either half or the entire knee. Okay, so start here behind the cannon bone. Please cooperate. Thank you. Whoa. Thank you. All right, so hold it really tight so that the first turn around, you really, until you can reach and grab the other end here, you're really molding around the leg, okay? Now, the second part here is going to be very important to kind of tighten this up here a little bit and making sure that you didn't cause any fold coming and wrapping around, okay? Now it feels pretty good. It feels like I'm kind of snug around the leg. I didn't cause any fold. I'm kind of coming up a little higher here, but at the same time, it's coming up a little higher there. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. And then I'm going to apply my polo wrap on top of it. Okay, so here, I'm going to want to make sure that when I do my first tighten towards the back, if you come around this side here and look here, or I don't know if you can see where my hand is. Okay, so I'm going to hold this part of the wrap, okay, and really tighten up so that wraps over my fingers like that. This way I make sure so that the wrap starts underneath this. So this way I'm making sure that I don't have a fold here. And if you notice, that seam here is also in the hollow part of the leg there. So here, to answer this question that I got, I'm pretty much certain that I have no unwanted pressure points here. So I'm going to be applying a fair amount of pressure, wrapping downward first and then upward until I reach about mid-knee. I don't want to block the ability for the knee to bend and flex, and then come and wrap over it. So this, I feel, is good support, but at the same time good protection from impact, and this is why I like to put that this way on my horse's front legs. Now, for the benefit of showing you how I wrap my horse's legs without a quilt, and very often at home I'll only put a quilt on one leg because it ultimately protects both legs from impact. And if I feel that and then I'm offering a little bit more suspensory support to the other leg, but if I really want to protect my horse's legs, I'm just gonna put quilts on both legs. And it's just important at that point to remember that you may have a little bit less suspensory support through your rides. Therefore, warming up, cooling off, and frequent breaks and pauses in between is going to be important to make sure that your horses has a chance to reoxygenate their body before you move on to the next exercises. Which brings me to the supplement that we feed, XLEQ, which has this natural vitamin E in it that helps distribute more oxygen to the body cells. This is probably why, knock on wood, we have very, very few injuries on our horses here at the ranch. So, just the same as with the quilt, I'm going to want to start this wrap in the hollow part behind the cannon bone here, just below the knee, where the knee stops, right here. So the seam here is going to be right there behind that cannon bone, right in that hole between the suspensory and cannon bone. So I want to make sure that when I wrap over this, I'm not tightening yet. I'm just unrolling over it to make sure that I don't cause any folds. And this is where it's really important to not have any folds when you're unwrapping. So this is why that the first part, especially going down, I'm mostly going to be unwrapping my wrap. I'm not going to be tightening up yet. I don't want to have any unnecessary pressure points. And most importantly, I don't want to be forcing the blood pressure towards the hoof of the horse. So this is why that I'm going to be going a little bit less snug and just unwrapping, going down, but going ahead and applying more pressure, tightening it up, coming up. So after I've got 1, 2, 3 rolls, which is usually the length of the cannon bone between the ankle and the knee that I want to cover, next I'm going to need to bring under the ankle here and offer that suspensory support and make sure that I have my good cross in the front. Where I may be a little bit different than most is I'm going to go around the ankle twice and make sure that I have really, really good suspensory support. So here, I'm going to go down under the ankle, okay? Even if I see a little bit here, that's okay. But here, you want to make sure that you cross right here in the middle. Very important. Okay, so you're going to go around underneath the ankle. And here, you're still just kind of unrolling the wrap. But here, this is where it starts. Now, I'm under the ankle nicely. I want to cross here in the middle. But this is where I'm going to give it a good thud, okay? Now, I've got support here. Now, I'm going to go over that ankle, okay? just over the ankle here. So the bottom of the wrap is going to be like mid-ankle right there, okay? And then again, come through that center, down. My cross is going to be in the middle, underneath, tighten, suspensory support right there, cross here in the middle, over the ankle, and now I'm going to unroll my way up about mid-wrap, like this, about mid-wrap, like this, like this, like this, and finish this off right here, just below the knee like that, okay? So this, I feel, is offering my horse probably the most suspensory support that it can. I'm fairly confident that there are no folds or unwanted pressure points. So if you're able to have someone or you wrap your horses that way, I really encourage wrapping your horses as much as possible. If you don't trust you have the help or the ability to wrap your horses this good, then this is where the Ventex 22 protecting boots will come into play. Okay, so now wrapping the hind legs is something that I do pretty early on because I do so much body control exercises and drills that crossing over in the back through side pass or yielding the hindquarters, my horses are very prone to stepping on themselves or knocking their hind legs together, and it's very important for me to protect them the best that I can so that they never get discouraged from making any of those movements. You can use a traditional boot such as the like for example this Ventex 22 boot here, which is the non-knee extended version. Okay, so any type of splint boots like that you would put on the front will be great to support to protect the hind legs and also offer some suspensory support. Probably use an extra large pair since the hind legs are going to be a little bit bigger and a little longer than the front legs. But how I'm going to wrap my horses, and I prioritize a lot how my horses stand when I wrap them. If my horse is too much out back or too much underneath themselves like that, it's going to be hard to really apply my wrap properly and also have the suspensory support that I have. So that I'm going to just move my horse around a little bit until I feel like he's standing square, where from there, just like that, from the hock down. Okay, so this is where I want to have my horse when I wrap him. Okay, so it's going to be the same system and same concept as the front, except that I'm going to start here in the middle. Again, put the seam right behind the cannon bone between the suspensory so you don't have a pressure point there. I'm just going to start lower because the cannon bone is so much longer that if I start too high, I'm not going to have enough wrap to go down here. One, over, under, support, over, and then back up that way. And then I'm not going to be able to go all the way up if I start too high and use too much wrap. And I want to be able to finish right here beneath, underneath the hock, okay? So again here, very good protection around the ankle, good support around the suspensory and tendon. And so this is how I like to wrap my horses. If you're not, again, having the confidence of doing this properly, then I just suggest that you use any splint boot, or even better, the Ventex 22 protecting boots, because of their ability to stretch a little bit, therefore really snugly wrapping around the leg and really offering true suspensory support. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, and I just remembered that I should mention this. I think it's very, very important, and I think that's something to keep in mind at all times, is that every time just before I apply the protection on my horse's leg or I apply the wrap, if you see me, I always run my hand down from the front, always run my hand down through the back. And this helps me feel that there's no heat or no unwanted bumps or any pain that my horse is feeling. So really important to always take care of really looking over your horse whenever applying your protections, because this is going to be the closest you'll get to their legs, and definitely the best opportunity for you to see if there is, or feel if there's anything abnormal. And lastly, so since the wraps and polo wraps are usually designed in length in order to accommodate a quilt underneath, which you can see whenever I did the one in the front with the quilt, my Velcro ended up right on top of the other side of the Velcro, therefore it didn't really require any tape because there's no risk of it coming out. But I see a lot of people riding around with polo wraps with no quilts under, which has that little extra piece dangling there, and you really want to make sure that you put some tape around that so that they don't open up and end up coming loose when you're you're riding. Now, what I really like from the Polo wraps from Lami-Cell that I use is that they have the soft part of the Velcro on that outside strip there, so therefore it's a lot less prone of catching on to the other wrap, you know, and getting stuck and coming undone, since it's the softer part of the Velcro. So this is very important. When you're putting your tape around the wrap, it's especially if it's going to be electrical tape, which is probably the cheapest and most used tape in order to do that, and probably the best tape to do that. It's slightly elastic, so what you want to avoid doing is going around and pulling like this in order to break it free, which is going to probably really tighten it up and put really pressure around the tendon and suspensory. So what you want to do is, once you've been around, okay, is that I'm going to hold it here like this with my thumb on the opposite side and just break it off like this. And I make sure that the only pressure that got applied was right here where I pulled and broke it, and not around the leg. Okay, so next we're going to be putting on some bell boots on my horse. Now, I used to have bell boots on my horses that had shoes, because I figured they were the one that really needed the protection mostly, especially if they step on themselves during a side pass or a crossover. And having shoes and stepping on their cornet bad could cause quarter cracks, or could cause really painful, really a lot of pain to the horse's hoof. So, so I was very religious about wearing bell boots on horses that had shoes. But now I'm even more religious about it, to where I want all horses to have bell boots pretty much, because there are so many instances where a horse that, you know, is running fast or really driving under himself and catching its heel bulb with his hind leg or his hoof or something like that. These type of injuries are so painful and can really set you back a week or sometimes 2 weeks until it's no longer painful, and it can potentially cause you some unnecessary vet bills, because you'll be looking for, you know, for what is that extreme cause of lameness that my horse has. Yes, I'll scratch you in a minute. What is that extreme lameness, and when it turns out to be just probably a bruised heel from or a bruised cornet band from hitting themselves. So this is why that bell boots are for me now mandatory on pretty much all of the horses. And so I use a bell boot, again, from the company Lami-Cell, Medalab. I really like their product because they've increased the size of that little bump here that goes right behind the fetlock, right in that hole there above the ankle, or above the heel, I mean. And so that really keeps them from turning. They also have a really nice skirt in the back that comes down to the bottom of the hoof, where they are not stepping on it to where it's making it move or anything like that, but they go low enough that really protect the heel well. Okay, so bell boots are going to be very important on all the horses. So where you want to have it to where it's sitting on that foot, not too tight, but sitting well, so that it can really go down enough to protect the heel there, but at the same time not too loose that it's going to be moving around too much. When you apply those bell boots, especially when young horses, try to never be in that path of where if they extend out and kick out with their leg, that you risk getting hit. And this is something silly, but something I find myself doing sometimes that I should be a little bit more careful about. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.